All right, guys, welcome back to Mark Anthony's Music Picks. Today we're on episode 5 of the From the Booth series. Our guest today is Tim Humphrey. Tim is a real Discogs OG. He created his original Discogs account in 2001, and he's been contributing to Discogs in various ways since then. So I really appreciate that. And more recently, Tim also became his own label boss. He launched his label called Rediscovery, which is centered around basically reviving old early 90s ambient projects that he feels are a little bit neglected or maybe need to be brought forward to the newer generations that otherwise wouldn't be exposed to it. So he's got a lot going on. It seems like he's devoted his life to music. So Tim, welcome to the channel, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So take me back to the beginning, if you don't mind. Tell me like the very first thing that got you involved with Discogs.
Oh, wow. The funny thing is, I think Discogs started probably around 2000. And I remember, when first started getting on the internet around like 97, 98, 99, of course, the first thing you do is, search for the music that you don't know too much about, so Fax Records and Rising High Records and stuff that I was really into at the time, Emit Records. Just trying to find information on it. And of course, when you started doing searches around 2000, Discogs would come up a lot, and I started using it probably a few months even before I made an account. But yeah, I just logged in and started becoming part of the early community, the forum. Probably if you go to like the first page or two of the chat forums, you'll see my name, and I was one of the first editors and moderators and you know big forum users and stuff like that. But we had a really good community and learned a lot about music because I grew up reading encyclopedias and stuff like that. So I was a big dork. So connecting the dots and knowing who was who was a big thing for me at Discogs because you look up like Ooh Schmidt and he records under this name and records under this name. That was kind of a big way to kind of connect the dots of all the stuff I was collecting already. So that was probably the biggest allure. But then I got really heavily into the forums and submitting music and doing a lot of reviews. So yeah, it's great experience, and I met a lot of cool people through it as well. So it's cool.
That's awesome. So I'm picturing if this site launched in 2000, I mean that's when Netscape browser was still around. So was it super raw back then as compared to now? Like if you looked at it now in terms of just how the interface looks and how it behaves. What,
You know, not really, because I don't even think the font changed very much. And it's funny you bring up Netscape because I was just reading, I was just watching a YouTube video on Netscape, the ups and downs of, the rise and fall of Netscape just recently, like 2 days ago. But yeah, it didn't really change too much because, the links were really the only thing that was part. It was very raw, like reading an encyclopedia. I think that's why the visual connected to me, and I think even my label, the artwork on my label and my the font on my label is kind of related to Discogs in a little bit of a way. But it didn't change too much, and I think that was the appeal of it, that it was very raw information and it wasn't bells and whistles. It was just the meat and potatoes.
yeah.
So
So yeah, no, it is almost beautiful in its simplicity. I personally, it's not my homepage on my browser, but it probably should be. And I mean, I hope my boss doesn't see this, but even when I'm working, I always have a Discogs tab up. Like, are you at that level too, where it's like always open?
yeah, I used to have some friends back in like '01, '02. I used to work at this recording studio called Media City Sound in Studio City, California, and I always had it up, and they would always walk in and like, oh, there's that Discogs dork again. He's on that thing. I'm like, oh, sorry. But yeah, I mean, I started in wireless sales in 2003, so I had my Trio PDA. I was probably one of the first ones, like with my BlackBerry and my Trio. I think I had a Trio 600 at the time, and I was, at the record stores, like looking up stuff, and people were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "I'm on Discogs on my phone." They were like, "What?" So yeah, I mean that was very helpful. Discogs and being on cell phones and stuff like that was really kind of helped me become a really good digger at record stores.
Yeah, yeah. It is, I guess, the new form of digging. I mean, I guess you can go and dig old school if you wanted to, but the beauty of it, like you said, like Wikipedia, you can go down rabbit holes, right?
Oh,
You can go down Discogs rabbit holes of like looking in the credits, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that this was his alias, right? You can have aliases hiding from you for years and you didn't know it. It's like you had this record and you got this record, you didn't know it was the same guy. I mean, that's fun to me. So I'm that's kind of like the vibe I'm getting from you too. It's like that discovery, right?
yeah, yeah, because I mean, pre-internet, like, in the late 80s and early 90s, when you went to record stores, you know, that's how you kind of opened your mind to new music and, kind of opened up that family tree of, connecting music was, artwork and names and fonts and
Hmm.
taking a chance on, music that, that just looks different and looks cool, like
Hmm.
so that kind of tied through Discogs where that became kind of natural where you kind of went through those like rabbit holes, like you said, and just got lost in connecting the music and knowing just always kind of remembering names and logos and stuff like that. That was always super important when I was a kid because in electronic music in the 80s and 90s, of course, we were just in the various section. We didn't. It wasn't like there was no electronica section. There was no electronic music section. There was no ambient or techno. It was just various music,
Hmm.
unless you were like Depeche Mode or New Order, or, you got into the mainstream, alphabetized music, you were just pretty much in various. So you really had to kind of look through there and pick stuff based on the artwork and, trying to recognize the name or, just something that sounded familiar. Like, oh, okay, I like that. I like this song on another compilation I have, and yeah, I'll get this one because he's on this one too, and stuff like that. So it's very similar to Discogs. I think that's the big thing I like about Discogs was it was kind of that encyclopedia feel.
Yeah, yeah. Like I can see what you mean there of connecting the dots. So when I started going to record stores in maybe 2004 and 2005, and the playing field for vinyl shopping, I feel like it wasn't level then, right? So you could get, I'll give you an example. You know the dub techno-ish artist Convection,
Sure.
right? You obviously do. I picked up the red one and the Venus and Spurs in a dollar bin at a record, right? At a record store, like in person. Maybe they were $3 each or something like that. And it blew my mind. And I feel like now everybody, like the cat's out of the bag, right? Everybody knows what the price is. Everybody knows like kind of what everything's worth. Do you agree with that? Like of just seeing like the playing field in the vinyl market just kind of get like leveled off to where it's hard to like really like score a deal sometimes.
Yeah, and then if they don't know, of course they go straight to Discogs to check. So yeah, to your point, it's definitely harder to find some lesser known. I think the key to that is having the experience of really knowing what music's coming to the forefront and or becoming popular again or something that's timeless.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hear it and you're like, okay, this is only a $2 record. Like this is definitely going to be more expensive in the future. Because you have that kind of experience of knowing like, okay, well, like this sound is timeless. This is this wasn't really you know beloved when it came out or really popular or especially in the time frame of like even though it's not my favorite time of music between like 2004 and 2010,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those records are very not well known because vinyl was kind of dying at the time and people weren't investing in it, so there was a lot of missed vinyl in that time for certain genres. But yeah, I mean, it's I think it's just important kind of like knowing what music is good now as it will be later, and kind of like taking chances. Sometimes you just take chances. You feel like it's going to be valuable in the future, but of course you want to like the music first of all. But it's nice buying something and then down the line you're like, oh, now it's really valuable record, or a lot of people want it, so it definitely makes you feel good. But yeah, it's definitely a lot thinner these times. Trying to find a score like Convection for $1 or something like that. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I picked up the Venus and Spurs reissue. I think the cover art that they did for that was really cool. So that's still sitting on my top shelf upstairs.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, he's definitely in my top 3 or 4 all time in electro and techno with Convection, of course.
Yeah, I was looking at your reviews on Discogs, and I picked 10 out of random, and I was just like, just to see. I didn't know any of the records that you reviewed. I didn't know a single one of them.
I think there's one on Venus and Spur actually.
Oh, is there?
But it's,
Okay.
but it's under my old username.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
actually I think it's the first review on that release. It's
Oh,
kind of
okay. Yeah, you got there first.
I'll have to show you. It's a good memory too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
crawling and hungry. Yeah, love that track.
oh, okay.
Uh,
I don't know which one's which. It's got like a scratchy shaker kind of thing in the high end. I don't know which one that is though.
mm.
It's like a there's one track on there that has like a really dominant percussion line. That's the one that I like on there, but I'm not sure which one it is.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. So I noticed in your reviews that at least the ones I checked that a lot of them were maybe 2001 to mid 90s. Is that kind of like your favorite era, or like are you also just as widespread across like the newer like decades as well, as far as your collection and what you're buying?
Yeah, it's pretty equal, I would say, between. I mean, I guess mostly talking about electronic music. I have a lot of new wave and synth wave and new
Uh,
wave from the 80s and stuff like that. But as far as like 90s to now, it's probably pretty equal between like 91 and 96, and maybe 2008 to now, 2010 to now. I went through a little period of maybe like 2007 to 2010, not buying too much vinyl just because at the time I didn't have a lot of money. At that time, I was kind of in between jobs,
mhm.
and but I would probably say like 91 to 96 is my favorite time. I kind of compare it to. I went to recording school in 96 to be a recording engineer.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed when I was into a lot of studios like freelancing and stuff like that, there was a lot of people that were making music just on a laptop. That was kind of really started to come out, and people were kind of going away from sequencers and keyboards, and that's why I love the like 91 to 96 sound, because those people were just you know picking pieces of equipment, tying it together, and those pieces of equipment have so much personality. Where I think now, 2010, and now, of course, people are getting the modulars and stuff like that, but people are understanding that, these things have their own type of sound, and it's a little bit more special and a little bit more real, I guess, in a way, maybe organic, and they all have their own personalities. The machine's a little bit more than just going to a laptop and picking up Fruit Loops or Fruity Loops or whatever they used to call it, like a certain program and just do everything in there, So like the personality of the early 90s music is just not only because of course, I was a teenager then, and that's what 91, I think when I was about 15, that was when I really got into electronic, into instrumental music. Um, and I think at that time they were, you know, home studios were really getting big. The first people like having their making their own music in their own little spaces and stuff like that, and that kind of allure of they didn't have to go to a studio and pay for studio time, and oh, okay, I got to get my stuff down to you know to get my studio time to make sure I can afford that. But now they're in their home, they have all the time in the world, so now they're really expressing themselves
Hmm.
in their music and their creation. So it's just that kind of time. Of course, the early rave and stuff, and ambient, and chill out scene and all that kind of stuff. I think that's why that whole generation is so big for people, whether it's jungle music or drum and bass or hardcore or hard techno or stuff, acid trance or whatever it is. That period, that explosion of people getting those used to be really expensive equipment. Now for cheaper secondhand, people are getting rid of them and stuff like that. So the expression in that time is and I think there was really no genres per se, and everybody was kind of mixing genres together and just it was just a great time for music, just for experimentation and stuff like that. So I love that period, and I think that's why we saw a big resurgence in that probably like last 5 to 10 years, early '90s music, just like the you know the just the interest in that has been great, kind of it coming back. So hopefully I'm a small part of that too. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree with 100% with everything you just said. I would say that I think it's very not appropriate or just spot on that your label zooms in or zones in on that time period because there's something undeniably magic about it. I don't feel the same about late 90s electronic music. I That's a huge from 97 to 2000 is just like a dead spot in my catalog or my collection for the most part. But really what got me, it was about a year or two ago, I listened to this Andrew Weatherall mellow mix, it's called, and it was came out in 1993, and I think it was a cassette tape, and he was just stringing together these like low tempo tracks that were made with the type of equipment that you're talking about. It has that it has that rawness that where you can tell it was made with a real machine. There's just something like maybe it's not perfectly quantized or there's just like an authenticity or simplicity to
yeah,
it. And the first like pop project that I can think that has that sound is the Depeche Mode Violator album. And like Enjoy the Silence and Halo, like that's like really grimy, simple yet effective synth pop. And then it's like the same machines were used and then started to be used to make this like trance, chill out, ambient, whatever that like kind of low tempo, like really addictive kind of beats are. And that's just like that was a beautiful era. And I think in the late 90s for me, when I listened to a lot of that, it's just kind of like a little too fast, a little too hard, a little too aggressive, and it's just like it just it doesn't really do it for me. So I really agree with everything you're saying there.
yeah. I think there was probably a lot of pressure in the late '90s as I think clubbing got more popular and kind of went away from rave warehouses into like super clubs and stuff like that. They were kind of probably a lot more pressured to make hits and make stuff popular, and not be so make music for themselves so much as make music for other people. And I think when you do that as a producer, you kind of lose a little bit of
Yeah.
the differences that kind of might make your music different because you're trying to make it like what you think other people would like. And
Mhm.
so, and probably a lot, and again, a lot of the equipment in the late '90s. I think people were kind of going away from some of those, those Roland keyboards and started to use laptops and stuff like that. And I think that kind of sameness of the music and maybe that, because it's so easy to make music, and then you fast forward to generations now where you can just upload something and make it right away. Where back then you went through record label and producer, and so you really had to sit with music to make sure you liked it. For somebody to pay to get it released. Where now you can just make something and post it online. So I just think the quality control of has just gotten worse over the years as well. People just want to make stuff and put it out. So there's probably a lot of things, but I kind of agree with you on except for like maybe a little bit of a deep house in the late '90s and a
Mhm.
little bit of progressive house. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of that during that period. There was some good glitch ambient stuff going on, like Millie Plateau label and
Mhm.
Scape Records, there was a lot of glitch, kind of ambient stuff that I do like around that period. But yeah, not too much in the clubs because obviously you had like progressive house and trance was really popular, and that was kind of going away, and then you had dubstep and EDM and stuff now. But yeah,
You know what? Now that you say that, I do. I forgot about trance. I do like 98, 99 trance. That like cheesy Oakenfold era, I'll take that. I'll still take that. I forgot about trance, man.
see, I'm kind of more of a sucker for the 92 to 94 trance, the like MFS records, early Paul Van Dyke. Uh, for the Frankfurt trance sound is really what IQ records, Sven Vath, stuff like that. Hard House records, Rising High, of course.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought by the late '90s it was very catchy, but it just kind of lost a little bit in the bass lines, and a little bit in the percussion. And
Hmm.
I think once you get past like 134 BPM, it's you kind of lose a little bit of the funk. You lose a little bit of the house feel once you get past that. And so, even though the melodies can be good, it kind of loses a little bit of the dance feel, and it becomes a little too, uh, I guess, hard trance, or maybe a little bit too cheesy at some points.
Yeah, they're too busy for their own good. Like I do think groove generally is brought out at lower BPMs. Like even sub 120, you can have a nice groove going if it's got some busyness in the high end.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting observation. I do think like 140 like 140 BPM is just kind of like a busy can be a busy mess if it's like produced that way.
Yeah,
So
I watched your video on Peace Division, and that's a good example of, tribal tech house, tribal progressive house, where you could slow it down to like 118, 122, 124, and it's still, it's still got a good, jacking sound to it.
mhm.
Where even if it's 124 to 120, even 132 in that range, which is probably what it's supposed to be, you can still slow it down and get a good, a couple minutes out of it where you got a strong transition loop you can, DJ with. So
Yeah.
yeah, they were a good example of, something that was tribal that you could slow it down and it still sound effective. Where if you do that with trance, it loses the key
Yeah,
of,
right. Yeah,
of
the
the
vocal.
melody, and then it's like, why am I playing this?
So the next question I wanted to ask you, a little bit of a topic change, Tim, is what are your thoughts on the vinyl market as a whole right now? And we'll say specifically for dance music. Like from what I'm seeing and looking at the tool that Discogs offers you, where you can go in and look at your collection and see what max value things are selling for,
Yeah.
that always keeps it's always higher. Every time I check it, somebody paid 350 for some giggling record that I have, and it just it's like could it get any hotter than it is now? Are we due like in the next recession is there just going to be a massive sell off of $5 records? What are you seeing now and what do you predict?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. It's an interesting conversation right there. That's a we could definitely talk about that for a long time. Um, can it get any bigger? I think with some records it can. I think the problem with Discogs, and I think most people go by the medium, anyways. I mean, when I look at the values, I always go in the medium, somewhere in that kind of 30-40%. I don't go to the extremes because obviously sometimes you have somebody who just sold, the condition of the record was horrible, so it throws off the low price. And then you have somebody who's probably their friends buying the record for $100. You see like on the low side, you see $3, you see $7, and then you see somebody who bought it for 100. And that doesn't seem to make sense. So obviously they probably put it up and then purchased it themselves. So you have those people that are kind of pushing the limit of the price range, right? Like if you put up a record and you tell me to go and buy it, and then I just give you your money back. Now you've pushed forward, so now you can resell it and put it for like 60, and maybe somebody, oh well, that was somebody bought it for 100, so maybe I'll get this one's got a mint one for 60. So if there's people out there that are kind of pushing the extreme, so I will say that, and I see that a lot, especially with a lot of my early '90s music as well. Um, I think the reissue, market out there has kind of helped things in some ways. I think everybody likes to. I mean, even myself. Hey, I got this record for $5. Now somebody wants it for like $80. I'm like, ooh, that's so cool. But at the same time, music is meant to be heard. You wanted to get it out there, so it's nice to kind of see people put out the records again. With respect. Hopefully I'm doing a good job of that. Hopefully others people are doing a good job of that, and treating the music like it should, and respecting the artists and working with the artists and making
Mhm.
sure they get paid for it and stuff like that. But it's an exciting time. It's great seeing the resurgence the last 8 or 10 years. Of course, everybody kind of has thoughts about things like Taylor Swift, putting out a bunch of vinyl, and people, Pink Floyd edition number 55, of Dark Side of the Moon. Can't you just go buy an old one for $20 or something? Like, why does that, you know what I mean? So it's like the manufacturing part of doing reissues and making vinyl again is a little frustrating because, obviously the majors are getting in there, and
Mhm.
major labels, and want to get their piece of the pie, and reissue whatever they have licensed and get it out there, and make a quick buck or something like that. So it puts a lot of pressure on us as far as like the delays in manufacturing and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
um, I think for the most part it's all good. I mean, I just I think from a I guess to answer your question from a collector's point of view, because I think before I'm a label owner, before I'm a DJ, before anything, I'm a collector. I'm a music lover. So I think from that perspective, it's a good thing because there's more vinyl out there. So I guess sometimes to answer a tough question is might be the most simplest. So I think it's for the most part it's good. But I think there will be a little bit of a downslide on this as far as like the values and things like that. I see CDs coming up, you know, having a little bit of resurgence in some genres. Of course, cassettes and like heavy metal and ambient are really popular right now in cassette market. So everything goes through circles. It could go down for a couple years and come back. Um, the one good thing I will say about the collections is it's really nice to see um, people get almost the value. Like if you're selling your whole collection, you're not getting pennies on a dollar now.
Mhm.
People are valuing your collection, they're valuing your experience and your time collecting. Like if you put let's say in 10, 20 years or something, it's like, hey, it's Mark Anthony, it's his collection of vinyl, his curated home vinyl collection. That's got to have a little provenance to it. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's Tim from Discogs. Oh, this is his collection, he's selling it. Maybe it gives a little bit of provenance, versus, like when a DJ sells their collection. So I think the collectors in this time are getting a lot of props like DJs would before, and labels, which I think is exciting. I think there's collectors out there that are getting a lot of respect and a lot of just a lot of hey, good job. Hey, you've been doing a great job in your collection. And I think the value of those collections are going up, which is nice because 10 years ago, if a DJ was quitting and they brought their vinyl into a record store, they get pennies on the record, or hey, this is my parents' record collection. Here it is, and you didn't get anything for it. Where I think now, people are getting a little bit more than it's worth. Whether they're selling
Yeah.
as bulk as individually, of course, you sell individually, it's a lot more. But it's nice to see kind of people get the value of their collection. Because we put so much time into collecting it. It's nice to get some value. You never want to take a nice car that you've been working on forever and then you go sell it and they're like, well, it's $2,000 on. I put like 150 hours into this. You know what I mean? So it's nice to see kind of like the community kind of get some get some love for their time and their effort and their knowledge about music, you know. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know if they'll. It's a nice boom right now. You know, it's nice to see kids get into it. You know what I mean? And I was at a record store 2 weeks ago, and I saw a B12 record. You know, from I think you know Stephen Rudder too, good guy. And you know, I saw this kid looking at the electronics section. He was probably about 12 years old, and I just went over there and I gave him the record, and I gave him $30 out of, you know, cash in my pocket. I was just, hey, buy this record. I think you'll like it. And he took it over to his parents, who were over in another section, and they're like, hey, this guy just bought this record for me. And they looked over like, hey, thanks. And I was like, hey, no problem. I think you'll enjoy it. And so, you know, so I try to do that when I'm at record stores and just buy a random record for a kid. You know, I think, you know, just to kind of encourage them to, you know, get into something cool.
That's the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, this is sharing music. You know, I just love.
Nice. That's great, man.
I try to do that every time I'm at a record store. Is buy a record for somebody who's looking.
Oh man, I've never heard of that in my life. I've never heard of that in my life.
For a second, my heart went for like that big when he did that because like I'm autistic as it gets, and like if someone would have did that for me growing up, I probably would have been like, "You are like you must talk to God."
I appreciate that. But sometimes you just find a really good record, and you might have a couple of copies of it, and you're like, this shouldn't sit in there. I almost feel like wanting to buy it, so I ended up buying it for somebody in the store. You know, just try to spread music.
Picking up where we left off, Tim, you kind of blew my mind with the last thing that you said. I have been seeing these outlier purchases on the high end in Discogs for the last few years. And I thought that they were fraud, but I wasn't sure what the mechanism was. I didn't consider that somebody would do it, refund the money, eat the fee. They would have to eat the Discogs fee.
Yeah.
Just to potentially set the stage for a high sale. But that's probably what's happening, right?
Yeah, I've seen it a lot over the last few years. In fact, sometimes I don't like leaving a comment on a record just because I know, I mean, not like my opinion's any more valuable than anybody else's, but sometimes when you put a comment on certain records and you say something, it really pushes the envelope, and then people start like, oh, okay, well, he likes this. Not that they're following me, but just the certain comment that's on there. Like if somebody puts like, you know, this is way ahead of the time, you know, which I always look at things from a historical perspective, anyways. So, you know, if somebody puts a comment like that, um, you know, stuff like that will generate the value to, you know, the demand to go up, which means people will think the record is more expensive. So obviously, if you put up a, you know, if the low grade is $2 and then there's a $6 one, and you got a very good one, and you sell it for 60, and then somebody has a mint one, they're like, whoa, if somebody sold a very good one for 60, that means mine must be worth 80. You know, so then the next person, unbeknownst to them, thinking it's fraud, will set their prices because of what's on there before. The nice thing about Discogs is it used to be like, I think it was like a year or two, it would give you the average prices, where now it's down to like maybe like the last 3 or 6 months, which I think is a little bit more accurate. So if somebody did that in the past, it's not still there. It's just more of the recent, which can be good and bad, I suppose. But I guess if they wanted to do that more regularly, that they would have to put more work in to do that again. But yeah, I see it a lot. It's unfortunate, you know, but there's always going to be people out there that, you know, are going to say this record's so great. And, you know, everybody's looking for that lost record, you know, and the sellers are out there, you know, trying to take advantage of that rare record, you know, or that soon to be wanted rare record.
Yep. It is self-limiting in the fact that you can try to hype something, but the music does ultimately speak for itself. So if you try to get the hype train going, maybe you can do it with some reviews, but I do think you're going to run it to a point where it's just like, that's an absurd price, and nobody's willing to pay it, record X that was listed for $90 sits for a year or however long, you outlast the seller's patience, and they either take the listing down or they lower the price to something that'll actually move it. So I that's one of the things that I love about Discogs, is that ultimately it is a free market. You see people coming in saying, you know, these prices are high, don't feed the sharks. That's true, but like you said, a reissue can always come along. The repress is the anti-shark, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to shark a copy and the repress is coming, your time is limited, right?
Yeah.
So
that's why you see those comments on there that, you know, reissue's coming, and then you see all these, oh shit.
Right, yeah, now you're stuck. It's over. It's
Yeah.
it's over. And I've also seen people play games where they bluff that a reissue is coming to get sellers to lower the price so that they can. There's all kinds of games in the Discogs marketplace. I've seen.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen that happen, and I'm like, I see what's going on here. It's some sneaky tactics.
I haven't seen that one, but it doesn't surprise me at all, because it makes sense.
Well, I can give you an example of where that happened. Specifically was the deep chord octal orange one. Somebody claimed a repress, but there's no master to repress from. So I would say that one's probably a bluff, unless there's something that I don't know about it. But
yeah, that's probably one of the most wanted dub techno records out there. I don't have a copy of that one, but I have pretty much all the other octo stuff. Used to see my echospace related collection. It's ridiculous. I want to say I probably have doubles and triples of over 100 records, and I think I have about 200 to 300 echospace related CDs. Like, I pretty much bought everything they had since they were on, you know, deep chord, and since they were on Fortuna records in 06, and then started echospace in 06, 07. So yeah, we got to get together sometime and check each other's dub techno collection. I think we'd be happy with each other.
Yeah, if there's any label to go nuts over, there's just something. I love the early echospace. The first maybe 10 or 15 vinyls were just they're really special to me. They're special to me like Border Community early releases are. It's just magic. It's organic. It's grassroots. It's just a dude with his equipment. I adore that. So
yes. Starlight's one of my favorite ecospace. Love that record. That remix.
The double pack.
Yeah, I have like every color, like the green, blue,
gray. Yeah, I have the purple, but yeah, that's really nice. That's really nice.
That's when you know you're a hardcore dork for records, is when you start talking about which colors you have, and the other person actually knows which ones.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind having. There's a deep red subtractive. The original subtractive with the phase 90 on the flip side. I would like to get the deep red one. I like that.
Okay. I can probably trade it for you if you really want it. So I have it. I'm your guy.
I'm going to take you up on that. Well, we'll see if you still meant it after the interview. But
no, I'm coming up to PA next month, or later this month. So I'll look through and see if I have it.
Okay.
Maybe I'll send it to you. If I can find it, I'll send it to you for Christmas. How about that?
Okay. All right, man. Okay.
You got it.
All right. So I want to, if it's okay with you, shift gears, and it's going to be to a topic that I know you'll want to talk about. So I want to talk about the current state of the scene, the going out scene. I can tell you, what I'm seeing in Philly, and you can tell me what you're seeing. I know that you're based out of Virginia. I don't know if there's a scene to be had down there, but what I've noticed is when I used to go out to the clubs in New York, the music was around you, right? So your typical room, it would be a rectangle or a square, and there were 4 stacks in the corners. They were well tuned. They didn't move, right? The sound was a permanent fixture in the facility, and the DJ booth was like sort of tucked off to the side or maybe elevated to the point where you couldn't really see them and they couldn't really see you. Now what I'm seeing at parties is, for various reasons, people are looking forward. The sound in the venue, even though it's a fixed venue that hosts music all the time, all the sound comes from the front. All the subs are under the DJ, and there's not much. If you were to face backwards, you're almost like depriving yourself of the experience. So do you think that, I think it's better for the sound to be spread around, right? Do you, how or why do you think that the sound and everything is at the front to have everybody looking in the same direction now, I guess?
Well, I think a lot of clubs have kind of gone away from having like proper house engineers, like a proper mix station in the back that kind of, you know, of course, when you're hiring somebody who's a house engineer or somebody who's going to take care of the music and not just the DJ or the promoter or the event person, just, if they properly put together the room, they'll generally have, some kind of house engineer there that's kind of monitoring the sounds and making sure, levels are correct and all those kind of things when it's going on or before. I would say if that's being done, there's probably, a good sound from around. But if there's not a house engineer, it's probably, like you said, just that kind of, stack of speakers at the front. And I think that's kind of driven just by more of the DJs and promoters and what's available. Maybe the resources financially has something to do with that. But I think in the clubs that are the higher end ones, they generally do around here have really good setups. And I'm sure you've heard of Flash is probably the best sounding club over here. They all have function one speakers, and that setup is top of the line. But yeah, I think in most other places it's pretty much just from the front. And I think yeah, I mean, to your point about where the DJ is, there's a I have different thoughts about why the kind of DJ scene has kind of gone towards a little bit more egotistical, and of course, selfies and social media has kind of changed that. But I do kind of enjoy where the DJ is kind of off to the side and not so much the the main thing to look at on the stage or whatever. It's kind of made the crowd kind of interact towards them, which is kind of great for the DJ to audience participation connection. But I think as far as people dancing with each other and getting to know each other, and I think it's kind of alienated that in a way, because they're dancing towards the DJ instead of dancing towards each other.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's kind of fractured, the dance floor, because everybody's kind of standing around looking at what song is about to be played, even if they can't see it. They're just looking up there, like, I think we have to be honest, like, there's really no performance unless you're watching a DJ. It's not like you can watch a band and watch people walk around and, or go crazy, or there's a light show, or, maybe there's some kind of video performance or something going on in the background, but it's really not that much to look at, so it's really about making, I think, the dance floor a better place. I think that should be the goal, more so than, hey, this DJ is up on the stage, like that's supposed to be something to watch. It's not. So I think that's, yeah, it's kind of alienated the dance floor a little bit. And I think if we kind of go back to where, there's not so much emphasis on the DJ, I just can't imagine the pressure in some of those places to be a DJ too, where everybody's watching you, and you know what I mean? It's just doesn't seem fair for just playing some records. It's like some great performance should happen. But I tend to like the places that are a little bit more lounge like, that aren't so, because I mean, maybe it goes with the music I like more. I like more deep house and maybe stuff that maybe isn't as danceable as, like, some of bigger clubs would play or something like that. But I do think there's some changes that need to be kind of evolved to a little bit more in some of the clubs just to make it more comfortable. You know,
Gotcha. Yeah.
you
You
know.
you touched on something there. Do you think that the all eyes forward style that happens at a lot of events, do you think that that encourages the DJs to do like excessive mixer touches and to feel like they have to be doing something more than they otherwise would be doing because now it's this it's not just the sounds. Now you need to be visually entertaining as well, but you're also confined to just kind of bopping around in front of two CDJs or a couple of turntables or whatever it's going to be, right?
Yeah, yeah, you said it all.
Yeah.
You said, yeah,
Yeah, like I don't touch I don't touch the mixer unless I have to, right? Like I'm not constantly fiddling with the gains. I find that just like for the most part, careful volume fades sound nice.
yeah. I think I probably do touch the EQs a little bit more so than the average person because I'll play a record from like I'll probably play more older records mixed with newer ones than maybe most people would. So on, like on the older ones, they really need some EQ love and volume adjustments. So I'm tend to on the EQs a lot, but I think it's how you touch them. That's the annoying part when you see, like something's really going on where, you're just kind of like, you know, is it a show or are you doing it for something else? I don't know, but I do touch the EQs a lot because I think for me, DJ, I'm more of a blender
Mm-hmm.
than somebody who drops something out and brings it back in and is a little bit more aggressive. But I think it depends on what style you play. I mean, what style of music. I think like if you play breakbeat, or drum and bass or something like that, then quick ins and outs are important. Where I think if you're blending keys and melodies, like I tend to do, maybe a little bit more ambient stuff, it's more about levels and fluctuations and yeah, a little bit more of I think it's because I come from a like engineering background. I'm just really into the more of the layers of textures. Like if I can hear something that's going out and I hear something that's a totally different level or sound coming in, then I can narrow like, okay, that's two songs playing. And that kind of excites me versus it just being on beat.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I liked what you were saying about the idea of being able to layer or hear that two songs are mixed, that they're blended, that they're almost dancing together, and just appreciating that as compared to, I mean, there's I guess a time and a place to do a fader slam or just like make a quick switch. If you've been doing long blends all night, maybe you could swap a couple of those in too. But yeah, I appreciate the overlap generally.
I mean, I think that's important for DJing to hear the two songs together. I mean, that's what DJing is for me. When I mix records, I don't necessarily always keep the records together. Like if two mixes go together, I don't like keep them on the shelf together because that bores me. If I go to DJ and I pick those two records, I'm like these go good together. I guarantee I'll mess them up because I'm overthinking it. You know what I mean? So like I I don't ever practice a set. I don't ever pre-record something. I don't ever like I just pick records and play. I yeah, I'm more of a lounge DJ than a dance DJ anyways. I think I'm becoming, but I just like to play a lot of different music. If I feel like I think a lot of times these DJs, are too constrained in their BPMs. And I can't imagine the pressure of being a DJ also because it's like the mixes have to be perfect all the time. And I'm that pressure and then trying to be in the same BPM and then trying to be known as a good mixer for one person who happens to come up Like, oh, I saw him mix and it wasn't very good. He must suck. You know, it's just like so much pressure just to play records. It shouldn't be like that. So I, you know, like if I'll just fade out a record and start a new one. You know, what I mean, I'll do whatever I can to do the opposite, just to kind of break the pressure and have everybody relax. You know, because it should just be about good music. It's not so much about the perfect DJing and the perfect, you know, mix and stuff like that. It should just be about exploring music. You know,
That's super insightful. I came up in a generation where mixing was a real pissing contest. I mean, amongst even close friends of mine, we would do mixes at each other's apartments, and we would basically critique each other, and it was brutal, man. I mean, for me, I already had a perfectionistic type personality, and even now when I do my recorded mixes for my channel, it's like I try to get it all in one take. Every once in a while, I'll just like your hand like hits the needle or something, and it just like, and it's just like, oh man, I just messed up. I had an hour of good music. I had 40 minutes to go. What do I do? You know what I mean? So I like your take of just I want to play an ambient set, or I want to play two records that I probably can't beat match together, and you're figuring out a way to do it in a way that's like, hey, I want to just present these songs to you. I hope you like them.
yeah, I think that's the most important thing is just, I mean, I kind of look at DJing as like an educational thing. I mean, that's probably to the extreme. I know some people just, you know, I want to go out dancing. And sometimes it is that simple, you know, but I really look at DJs as, you know, diggers and collectors and, you know, somebody that can educate you on a certain style. Even if I like drum and bass, for example, and let's say I'm watching a drum bass DJ, you know, I expect them to kind of, you know, show me something that I wouldn't normally have heard and do it in a different way. You know, maybe mix a little differently, or you know,
Mhm.
just fade out a track and let a song play, or play a acapella or so. I don't know, but you know, just to be something a little different, just be a little original. But
Yeah, it's really refreshing. Honestly, I've never heard somebody come out and say that. I mean, it's so everything's so confined to like the techno DJs. They want to play like above 135. It's like the house guys are at 120. Everything's kind of like super specific and kind of rinsed. I don't know how else to like. So to like hear you just like you saying, "Hey, I'm just gonna let a track end and then play
yeah,
another track." I mean, I would never thought of that. The closest thing that I've heard of that or seen is Damian Lazarus. Are you familiar with him? Like
no,
he's the label boss for Crosstown Rebels. He did a mix in 2008. It's called Sci-Fi Lo-Fi, and I'll put a little picture up in this video when I edit this back, but so you can see what the cover is. But he basically played like the type of set that you're describing, like a backroom chill out session with some tech house and some synth pop mixed in and some really obscure stuff. And his transitions were just random snippets of people talking and background noise and ambient. And he just wove this bizarre tapestry that just worked. So that's kind of like what you're alluding to there, Tim.
yeah, I mean, you brought up Andrew Weatherall, and I have this old mix of his. It's actually a compilation called 9 O'Clock Drop that was on I think Neuphonic Records in 2001. But I mean, he has reggae on there. He has, you know, just really old William Orbit. You know, what I mean, Aswad. You know, what I mean, just random stuff that's just good tracks. And I really think that's the future of DJing because I mean, me personally, I'll mix like I actually did it for Ari when Ari was over the other night and I was mixing, and I did about four deep house songs. I mixed four deep house songs, right? And then I went into a few ambient, and then I think I played a reggae track and then a dub track, and then a few other things. We got dude. He's a transformer master. Look at that. He has so many Transformers over
I
here.
did. I went over to his house and I was like, do you practice doing transitions? He's like, not unless someone comes over and I get to show people. And I was like, I'll come over. Your transitions were glorious.
Yeah, like I don't practice DJing that much. It's just I just want to play different stuff. But yeah, I get kind of bored of playing any certain genre for more than like a half an hour. So there's so many good genres out there. You know what I mean? There's so much good music out there that I like to play a lot of stuff. Just
Yeah.
if somebody says, "Hey, play a techno track," play a techno set for an hour. Yeah, that's okay, that's fine. But if you're gonna give me free reign, I'm probably gonna be all over the place, just
Hmm.
because I kind of get a little bit bored of playing one style for too long. I guess it depends what time you're playing at night. If you're playing out, that's probably a big thing. Obviously, I'm not going to be playing the ambient music at 11 o'clock at night in between two techno DJs, but I just like to play a lot of different stuff. There's so much good stuff out there.
Hmm. Well, what size time slots are you seeing at the parties you're going to? Because here it has gotten down to 1 hour slots, so you can't play an eclectic set in 1 hour. I mean, I guess you could if they were 3 minute songs and you were just busy hands the whole time, but a 3 hour set, what don't you think, or a 2 hour, 2.5 hour set, don't you think that'd be a little bit easier to genre hop, like your genre
Yeah,
hop, like you're referring to?
yeah, because also you have like a 5-10 minutes on each corner where the other DJ is trying to get in and put his stuff in, and I mean, you're setting your levels, and he might play 5 minutes longer, and it's really a hard track to transfer into something that you really want to go into. So you have to, take it a couple songs, then kind of get into what you want. Yeah, I mean, I tend to favor 2 or 3 DJs in a 5-6 hour slot versus 4, or 5. Yeah, I just think uh, hour isn't a long enough time to express yourself.
I
Now,
so
now when you have like collections like we have, or a lot of people have, it's just where do you how do you pick I'll come with a bag of like 30 records, to play an hour set. And like, that's way too much, but I just don't know what I'm gonna play. I
mhm.
just
Yeah, ultimately to ultimately present seven and then be on your way. It's just it's
yeah.
tough, but I think the reason, at least in Philadelphia, that's happening is that people see the DJs also coincidentally as promoters. It's this like dual functionality. So obviously, the more DJs you invite, the more guests you get, right? And I think
Yeah.
for at least here, it just seems like people are always trying to eke out and break even. They're taking L's on a lot of parties. At least in Philly,
Well,
it's always a struggle here.
yeah, yeah. I think that's why I'm kind of, my label is kind of trying to help promote chill out rooms and second rooms at DJ places. The room that can be kind of, whether people go and have a cigarette there, or they just, want to be at a bar and actually talk to people, at reasonable levels of the music. Like, I want to be in a place more like that and DJ, because obviously, there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 DJs in that room all night versus, the pressure of, having a bunch of DJs and popular DJs play over here. It just kind of breathes more to my music too, anyway. So I really want to see more of lounges, restaurants, and those places inspire me to DJ a little bit more so than dance clubs, lately. Unless I'm going to do like an 80s night, which I'd love to do an 80s night, if somebody would have me do it. I love going into my 80s bag, but um, yeah, that's kind of getting, I don't know, maybe I'm getting older, but not so much the dance clubs really inspire me. They're I'm more into the home environments,
Yeah,
nice component stereos and maybe 20 friends over in a house party. That's kind of more my speed.
that's a refreshing take though, Tim. It sounds like I need to come to one of your house parties. That's what I'm hearing here. So that sounds cool, man. You mentioned your label. Let's segue over to that. So Rediscovery, I love it. I have the Deep Space here on hand. This is my favorite, but I have to be honest, I've been buying them blind ever since the second one. I love it. You know,
Thank
it's basically like it was done by a collector, and you getting down to the detail of the inner sleeves that you put in that have the little cushion so that when you pull the record out, it doesn't make that like scraping. It doesn't like VG plus it as soon as you as soon as you take it out. I'm
Good
like,
point.
this guy, he's paying attention to the details. Like the art looks good. It's just, I really appreciate the packaging and everything that you're doing there.
Thanks. I
Um,
appreciate that. Thank you for your support too. I appreciate that.
yeah, no problem, man. So what
Especially
was
since I know you come from more of the dub techno, tech house, progressive techno. I appreciate you kind of throwing me in there in your collection.
yeah, educate me, man. I'm all about 93. So anything in that plus or minus 2 years, just keep bringing it.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
my high school years there.
Yeah, what was the little green or the first kernel of thought that started Rediscovery? Like were you thinking, oh, I want to start a label, but I don't know what the concept should be, or did you have the concept almost before the idea of having the label came?
I have to thank everybody else that I know and inspire me to try it, to give it a shot. You know, I've always liked space music, so that always had to be a theme. Because I love space soundtracks and spacey music and melodies and sound effects and stuff. That's all I've always liked as a kid. And so that kind of came over to the graphic and stuff like that. I always tried to give the artist the full, if they want to do the artwork and they want to do that, I give them full. If not, then I do my logo type labels and I change the color. Like we all know dub techno come from Basic Channel and Mauricio and all those things. Change the color on dub techno. It's that kind of that catchiness when you're in the record stores and you see colors, but you see the same kind of design. So I kind of try to take that, but I try to give them the full input if they want to do the artwork and how it's presented and everything. I try to. The only thing that I really kind of do is the insert. I really kind of take on that because I like to take a historical perspective on it and kind of do a little bit of overview and then let them kind of talk about what they remember about the release and stuff like that. But really, I mean, how it started was really, I have so many friends that have started their own labels. Some of them are from Discogs, and Anil has forced geez, I can't think of the name right now. He has that, and then Martin has Touched, and there's quite a few people that from our old Discogs that have their own labels, and I saw kind of everybody else doing it, and then I started doing some more reviews for artists and stuff like that, and promotion for a few labels that I do, and then that kind of tied into the manufacturing part, and then I was just like, well, I'd really like this on vinyl. This has never been on vinyl, and then trying to use the connections that I have, like David Mufang, who was really cool with letting us do that first one. And yeah, it just kind of started on its own. Like everything kind of just seemed to come together. And I think at the same time I was laid off at a job and pandemic happened. And, I wanted to really get a little deeper with my hobby. I was kind of put off a little bit by the DJ community and like we kind of just talked about. And
Hmm.
I was kind of looking for a different kind of outlet. I think we all need creative outlets, and I wasn't really DJing, just collecting all this music, just always collecting because that's my favorite hobby about it. But I was really seeing the opportunity with the reissues to not only, kind of share the music with another generation, but kind of bring back people that were my age and were kind of like, oh, I love that record. Oh, now I can get a brand new copy of it. Or I didn't know about that record, but I love that artist. Or, so I really wanted to just kind of like you said earlier, just highlight a lot of the music that maybe kind of got a little bit forgotten, but I think is a little bit probably in retrospect, probably some of the most timeless music that I felt. And that was really important to my youth. Um, just trying to bring it back and respect those artists, and give them uh, some new fans. I think is the big thing too. Like the next release that I have it's a artist from Sweden called Unit 21, and and I just happened to find him, and he was just like, hey, I got some unreleased music, and I was like, hey, send it over, I'll check it out, because I wasn't even planning on doing any unreleased stuff. It was just going to be reissues. And so he showed me all this cool work. I was like, wow, you made this in the 90s and it never got released. And he had like 15, 16 songs. And I was just like, wow, we got to release this. People are going to dig this.
Mhm.
And so it was just kind of like, some things just happen organically,
Yeah.
and it's just, you want to share music from your generation that was important or unreleased, and just show it to a new generation. And thankfully, like you have some good people that follow your channel, and what you're doing. Hopefully some people follow what I'm doing, and I'm following what they're doing, and
Mm.
we're all kind of taking kind of a collector's approach into pushing stuff back into the community, which I think is cool.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's your heart's in the right place, 100%. You mentioned David Mufang. Is that how you say his name? Mufang?
Yeah, Move D.
Yeah,
I guess people
yeah.
mostly know him by Move D.
Yeah, I have a probably a handful of Move D records that would be house or tech house.
Yeah.
I remember some performance that he did that involved a spacesuit, and was it around? Can you like kind of like retell that story, or because I remember seeing like a picture of it, or I started to watch a video and I can't remember like what the concept was.
Yeah, so that was actually the launch video of my first record, which was the one you just held. So I mean, David is such a great guy, and I was just like, do you think we could maybe do like a video just to like, and of course he took it to the till, because him and Jonas, the other guy in Deep Space Network, Jonas Grossman, he's a graphic designer. So I don't know if you know any of the old Deep Space Network video footage, but they used to DJ with like Autechre and some of the best IDM artists of the early 90s. And they were very much, I think they were in the like Love Parade, like 94, and some of the biggest you know most intelligent dance music IDM of that period, and that whole scene. But they used to do a lot of video projections and a lot of video, almost kind of like a Zoo TV of U2. Like they did a lot of videos, and they were on MTV Chill Out back in the days. Those videos, they actually had one on their show, to the song Zen Law, which is the first song on that record.
Okay.
And he just took it to the extreme where he's like, I got a spacesuit now, I'll wear the spacesuit at the beginning, and then he ended up doing a video, a projection, like a video for each song. So if you watch the video of the whole album, there's a song and almost like a video for each song in that whole launch video. So we might bring that. I was just talking to him a couple days ago. We might do a DVD of that, and just all their old footage, and that might be hopefully my first label's first DVD, which would be really kind of cool. But he's got so much background footage, and they have 3 albums, so we might do a little compilation DVD type thing. But yeah, that was so humbling. I mean, seeing one of my favorite artists and one of my favorite albums, and him go to that kind of extreme just to do a launch video for my album was just amazing. I was mind blown. It was actually that day I was at my brother's birthday, and I brought my laptop over, and all my family was in the other room. And I think my mom or dad came in. He's like, "What's he doing?" And I was just like, I just had the biggest smile on my face. I was just like, people were purchasing the record, and I was just like, wow, this is like a dream come true. This is so cool.
Yeah.
So just trying to be a small part, and since I don't make music, I'm not DJing out, at least I can be a small part in bringing some cool music out. But yeah, that was really pretty awesome. That was one of the coolest experiences I've had in music.
Yeah,
David's such a great guy. Such
yeah.
a great guy.
Your label makes me happy. I mean, when I unbox them and I take them out, it's landing well. Did you allude to the other? Isn't there another Deep Space Network that has a green and black cover? Is
Yeah.
is that going to be a future release? Is that what you were alluding to there?
That one's me and David were just talking about that a couple days ago. I hope to do that.
I had asked you about the Deep Space green and black cover, whether that is that in the pipeline.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can do that. There's of course, higher intelligence agencies also involved in that. It's a joint album with Bobby Bird. So I have to kind of get his approval. I've kind of bugged him a few times about it over the years, even before I had a label. I always, 'cause I love that release as well. So I'm hoping that one's in on the more at the end of the month. But I'm hoping to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and my last question for you today, how stacked is your pipeline at this point? How far do you see this label going into the future?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I learned a lot this year about the manufacturing, of vinyl and the delays that happened this year. Because I would put in something and then kind of wait a few months, and then and I was hoping to put out about 6 or 7 releases this year, and I ended up only putting out 3. And so I've kind of turned it into overdrive, and I already have about 4 releases coming out next year already set up and in the process of being made. So I'm hoping I can do like 7 or 8 next year. I got some. I don't want to say any names, but hoping I can get. I got some pretty big projects coming up that I would really love to be part of. Um, I don't know if you're a big Fax fan or if you know Fax label at all, Pete Namlick. Okay. Um, so somebody just bought out his old catalog, and he's doing reissues on some of the old Fax label, which is huge. So that might open the opportunity for me to do some ones that are that beloved, like David Mufang has some on Fax that he may have the rights to, and there's a lot of other big chill out names that I'm kind of like talking with, and some ambient techno artists and stuff. Some of my favorite artists, that I have known for a few years. Now that they've kind of seen some success with the label, and they see some good things, and hopefully the presentation on the music is good to where they feel like, oh yeah, Tim will do a good job with this release, and just trying to work through the licensing type stuff, and just make sure that they're happy, and and we could all work it out. But yeah, it's gonna be a good year, I think. Yeah, but I don't know if I'll ever do like 20 releases or 50 or 100, or how long this will go, but I think probably just till I get bored of it. Maybe do something else. I don't know if I'll ever get bored of it, because it's pretty rewarding. It's pretty cool to be a small part of the scene in some way. Since I don't make music and I don't DJ again, so or I don't DJ out that often. But yeah, it's been really rewarding. So I hope to continue it, and I hope people will like the music that comes out on it.
Yeah, from my perspective, you're really running a tight ship. So keep up the good work, man. I appreciate them all. I can tell, like I said before, even in just like the edge of the vinyl, when I look at it, like in the run-in grooves, like it's nice and rounded and polished. It's just that you're putting out a really high quality product, and I notice those details. So really keep up the good work, man, and thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to One Eyewitness, who's my distributor out of Amsterdam. Colin's a great guy to work with if anybody needs a distributor. He's out of Amsterdam. And Record Industry, who presses them. They do a great job, and they haven't made any mistakes on any test press things. They've been good to deal with. So there's a lot of good places out there that are making vinyl and being good distributors. And I'm thankful that I got a good one right off the bat and didn't have to work through a few, you know, ones that weren't as good. So it's been good. It's been good. Also, Rand Distribution made the first one there, the Deep Space Network. So they did that one. So worked with them on that one. So they were good too. They're out of Germany. So
Awesome.
yeah.
All right, and I'll put a link in the description to the Rediscovery Bandcamp, which is the main pipeline for Tim's music. And Tim, thank you so much for coming on the channel today. I really appreciate it. I feel like we're going to be friends for a while after this meeting. And, you know, stay in touch, man. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, man. When I get home, I'll look for that Deep Chord record for you.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, it's echospace record. Excuse me.
Okay.
Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
All right. You're welcome. Take care, Tim.
Take care.